Hey everybody, welcome to my channel. Hope you guys are all doing well today. In this video, we're going to go ahead and talk about RSR, the token for the Reserve Protocol. There's a few updates that I'd like to go over, and I'd like to share why I'm very optimistic about the project. I've been in the space for a long time. There's very few projects that I come across where I think immediately, wow, this token is really going to fly. I rarely come across projects where I get more bullish as I find out more details related to the project, and it happens to be one of my highest conviction plays. Despite being an early investor, the reason I waited so long to do a video is because I wanted to give my patrons enough time to accumulate. I recently reached out to them. They all said that they were okay with me doing a video, so here we are today. And after watching this video, if you guys enjoy my insights, you guys like my perspective, and you wanted to talk to somebody and get resources to really streamline your learning when it comes to the DeFi space, I welcome all of you guys to come join my Patreon by clicking the link in the description below. Things move really fast in this space, and maybe you don't have time to keep up with everything. That's where I come in. I spend a ridiculous amount of time just reading about various DeFi projects, the latest developments. So by joining my Patreon, not only are you getting a full suite of services, you also get to converse with somebody that's been following this space for a long time and that does daily research in the space. So if that sounds like a service that you might be interested in, make sure you guys check out my Patreon page by clicking the link in the description below. With that being said, let's go ahead and dive into this video. To begin with, I think it's important to talk about the macro picture. It's one thing to do research on a project to see if they have the secret sauce, if they have the right team, and if they're making the right moves and aligning themselves with the right people. But as we saw in the bear market, it didn't matter what the projects were doing. There was only one direction most tokens were heading. With the RSR token, we have three forces working in its favor. Number one, as most of you guys can see, we're clearly in an uptrend. It's my view, that's shared by many others, that we're most likely in a bull market. In terms of what stage of the bull market we're at, I'd say we're somewhere in 2016, which implies that there's a lot more upside to come. But on top of that, you also have an inflationary environment. You've seen central banks around the world printing massive amounts of money to stimulate their respective economies because of COVID. I mean, just look at some of the headlines. US has printed more money in 1 month than in 2 centuries. And you even have people like the US Treasury Secretary Steven Mnuchin saying that the Federal Reserve will provide unlimited liquidity. In other words, they don't care how much they have to print. They'll print until infinity to make certain that the markets stay propped up. And lastly, I've been saying for a while now that DeFi is going to be very big and it's going to stay with us for a very long time. If you agree with me that code is going to eat all of finance, then you'll also agree that DeFi will probably lead that charge. And if you've been following the space for the last few months, you might have noticed that the DeFi tokens have taken off in a very big way. Many tubers that were asleep to the opportunity are now looking into and talking about DeFi projects. Fortunately for us early investors, RSR has been labeled a DeFi token. So just to summarize all that, number one, you have the bull market just taking off. DeFi is becoming very popular as a trend within the crypto community. And while all that's going on, while you have a lot of eyes on the space, the team is building a product that's going to improve people's lives that have been living in countries that have been ravaged by hyperinflation. So of course, none of this is financial advice, but you basically have the right project building at the right time. And by being token holders, we can share in the project's success. So moving along, let's talk about a recent update. So one of our community members asked the CEO Nevin the following question: when do we expect an update on the app upgrade? Nevin responds, we're getting pretty close. The team is starting to test the new app version on different devices internally before the release. And right here you can sort of see a sneak peek of what's to come. Of course, none of this has been finalized, but you can get a sense of what the app may look like when it's finally released. He continues, this version of the app automates a bunch of the first fiat on and off ramping operations so that our back office staff and partners can handle more volume. But this isn't the version that's going to handle on-chain transactions. That version is in development in parallel and will come out later this year. So many of you guys may or may not know there's a version of the app that was deployed in Venezuela. They've tested it, they've gotten some feedback. What they're essentially doing here is they're finalizing the design before it's released. Another relevant question asked by a community member, I've noticed that 700K new RSV, which is the stablecoin, was minted a few days ago, making the total supply over 1 million. Can you tell us something more about that? Also, although the supply increased, the liquidity is not really good as RSV is only listed on a few low volume exchanges at the moment. Are you planning on listing it on bigger exchanges? Yes, recently there has been interest from a few major exchanges in listing RSR, and we are working on getting RSV listed on those venues as well. Even though Nevin can't explicitly state it, many of us who've researched the project know that Coinbase Ventures is an investor in the Reserve Protocol. And that was part of the reason why we were very optimistic about the project. Many of us thought that an RSR listing on Coinbase was imminent. And so even though Nevin can't explicitly say it, there's a good chance that RSR could be listed on Coinbase sooner than we think. Just recently, on July 31st, Coinbase unveiled a list of coins that they're going to explore supporting. And if you look here on the screen, RSR happens to be one of these coins. Coming back to the response to the question, we minted additional RSV in preparation for these potential upcoming listings. We need inventory to provide liquidity so traders have a good experience with low slippage. We will likely unlock some RSR from the Slow wallet for liquidity provision on these new venues as well. Not to use for fundraising, we have years of cash runaway already. Nevin continues, if you look at the BTC USDT pair on major exchanges, you can see millions of dollars of liquidity on the books 24/7. We want to eventually get to that point with RSV as well. This is also great news because in theory, as more and more RSV get minted, because of the way the protocol is designed in terms of providing collateral and exercising arbitrage opportunity, the practice of generating RSR should lead to more and more RSR being burned. Here in the last question on this Twitter feed, this community member asked about what kind of return to expect in terms of the arbitrage opportunity provided by the protocol. And basically what he says here is that we can't anticipate what the rate of return is going to be, but they're expecting anywhere between 2 to 5%. But folks, I wouldn't worry about that too much. I mean, if you look at what's going on with Link, actors in the DeFi space are finding very creative means and methods for you guys to earn passive income on your cryptos. I mean, just look at the Y-Curve pool. They found a way for people that are holding Link tokens to earn compounded interest. And on top of that, you have bancor, which just introduced a Link/BNT pool that should completely remove the risk of impermanent loss. And at the same time, they're going to allow you to provide liquidity just using one token. That means you're going to be able to provide liquidity using your Link tokens, earn compounded interest, and be able to withdraw your tokens at any given time. And if you look at some of the preliminary data out of the pool that they have, of course you can't really extrapolate this, but the initial results look really good and the yields look very substantial. Once they remove the cap, of course, all of this is going to change and volume fluctuates over time. It doesn't remain constant. But my expectation is that with most of these pools, you're going to make north of 10% per year. If that's the case, it's just a matter of time before they support a RSR pool. So personally, I'm not very worried about passive income opportunities. I think we're going to have abundant passive income opportunities within the DeFi space. Before I begin this segment, I just wanted to ask everybody with a Twitter account to follow this guy on Twitter if you're an RSR fan. Not only does he provide information, but he also has an entire store dedicated to RSR merchandise. But the reason I'm on his profile is because he published the following chart recently. Now, for my private members, I sent them a few months back a private video, a private write-up on why I think RSR is going to perform XRP-like gains. I said this a lot earlier than many of the people that are mentioning it on Twitter now, but it's good to see that other people feel the same way. I think making this type of comparison chart over chart can be very challenging, but I think the author here did a pretty solid job overall. And the point I'm trying to make with this is that the price of these tokens can move up very fast. So for those of you guys that have been trading the legacy markets that are new to crypto, this may seem unrealistic to you, but you have to remember, number one, we're dealing with a completely new asset altogether. Not only that, we're dealing with a completely new paradigm in terms of investing. VC firms, venture capital firms, are buying into the idea that to get exposure to this asset class, to some of these protocols, they need to buy the respective tokens. And we've seen that with tokens like Lend, the Aave protocol. There's a few VC firms that bought the token thinking that it's the equivalent of buying stake in a company. And the reason they're buying into that investment narrative is because many of these protocols, Reserve Protocol included, plan to decentralize, integrate a DAO, a decentralized autonomous organization, and give ownership to the token holders. So of course, in that setting, for you to get exposure, you need to buy the token. So the point I'm trying to make here is that as retail investors, most of us don't get access to early opportunity investments. With DeFi, in my view, you're provided that opportunity, but what's unique is that you're not only competing with other retail investors, but you're competing with VC firms. For that reason, I think these types of parabolic moves are to be expected. It's not financial advice, but I think we're going to see them in RSR and many other DeFi tokens. I think we'll start to see it this year. The mania probably won't come until the following year in 2021. Personally, I have some very optimistic targets for RSR. I've only disclosed them to Patreons and my Discord members. So if you wanted to talk more about RSR, you wanted to learn what my price trajectory is, make sure you guys join my private Discord by signing up with the link in the description below. It's only going to be active for the first 25 clicks. So well, that pretty much wraps things up. If you guys enjoyed the video, smack that like button. I'd love to hear your thoughts and insights in the comment section below. And don't forget to subscribe if you're not a subscriber already. This is CryptoOneStop signing out. I'll talk to you folks next time. Bye.